Michelle Graves, your host on The Power of Money, and I'm honored to have you as a part of my world in this coming segment. With The Power of Money, as you know, we are interested in three things. First, that you get the necessary education so that you and your family will have the information to do well in these difficult times. The second thing I'm interested in is for you to be empowered to prosper. I want only the best for you, but you can't get that if you don't have the education and then the drive to make it happen. And the final thing, and perhaps the most important thing, is that you be energized, because life is more than a journey. Life is about living. And so I want you to learn these things and to be empowered and encouraged and energized. I'm Michelle Graves. Now here we go.
And here we go, and what an amazing, amazing guest. I'm privileged to have on to The Power of Money today, Sandra Jones Mitchell, who is CEO and Executive Director of an incredible organization that she birthed 30 years ago, and it's still just doing amazing things on behalf of seniors, known as SOACT, which is headquartered in Cincinnati, Ohio, but has a regional, national, and hopefully global reach, because what she does is so impactful on the lives of so many people. She will be my guest for the next hour, and you just want to get comfortable, and you're going to love this woman. I'm just telling you very openly. She is so transparent and so real, and she's coming on the show today by way of Zoom from her offices in Cincinnati. And we're looking forward to a great time to share and to hear her experiences as the founder and now director, CEO of SOACT in Cincinnati, Ohio. So we're going to go on to Zoom, and we're going to get started today. Thank you for listening in, tuning in, watching. You're going to be just delighted. There is good news in spite of all of this. There are people doing good things. So just stay tuned. Here we go. Can we please? Hi there.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I am just beyond thrilled and excited for your willingness to come on to The Power of Money. And we're just going to dive deep into it, and because there's a lot that I want to cover in the short time we have for this show. It's an hour, but how do you compress in an hour a lifetime of work on behalf of the senior population? So let's talk about you. Tell me a little bit about your background and your history, and how you birthed this organization.
I can truly tell you, to God be the honor this morning. I have a very exciting life, and there's days I have to really sit back and just really understand the journey that I've taken these 61 years. It was ordained, right? So I could just remember growing up in Commersville, which is east side of Cincinnati, Ohio, as a little girl, and my aunt Mamie, who lived across the street, who I was so fascinated with. She was an elderly woman, and she was my dad's oldest sister, and she took my dad in after his parents passed away, and she would just talk about growing old. And when you're a kid, you think old is just old, and so didn't really understand the concept of old age until she broke it down. And she said, you need to start planning your life on what do you want to do when you get to be 15, 30, 40, 50. I'm like, I'm only 8. And so, but the conversation was real. I spent so much time with her. And I really started this organization because of her spirit. So growing up in Commersville, it was just exciting. My first job was Meals on Wheels at age 14, preparing hot meals for seniors. And so we worked at Washington Park Elementary School, downtown Cincinnati, which is now the famous Washington Park here in Cincinnati. And I was able to prepare this hot food during the summer, and we delivered it to senior centers. At that time, the city of Cincinnati paid the recreational centers that was all connected. They gave them monies to help our seniors age in place. And I was just so fascinated with that, going from place to place. And my supervisor at the time, Miss Maxine, she would say, honey, you're spending too much time talking to them. We got to go deliver food to the next place. And I would just be so fascinated. Couldn't wait to go back the next week and the next week. But what I learned from that experience, that was folks that are in need. I didn't understand exactly at age 14 how I was going to be impacted at all. And so my next job was working at the VA hospital here in Cincinnati, Ohio. I was escorting patients back and forth to their doctor's appointment, and I was just so thrilled to talk to some of them about their experience in the military. And that really spearheaded a lot of interest. I remember asking one of my supervisors if they had any money so we can buy snacks. He said no, and so I was like, but they've been here all day and they need something to eat. At that time, they cooked the food at the VA. Now I think it's outsourced like most things. And he said, okay. He said, why do you care so much? I said, because this guy has been sitting here for 4 or 5 hours with nothing to drink or eat. And so I was very fortunate to have a supervisor to say, okay, while you're escorting them, you can give them a snack and give them some water. And they were just excited that I was excited, right? And so I asked to come back the next year. So I worked that the next year. And I was just really floored by the energy of our elders. I'm looking at some of the seniors that was wounded in the war, but sitting there all day, they never lost their spirit. And so that kept me happy as a young person. And so in high school still, and I just remember being a part of just something bigger than me, and didn't understand it until later on in life. And so at age 17, I'm at Hughes High School on my way out, graduate, and Reverend Jesse Jackson came up to Hughes High School in 1978. And he said, what are you going to do with your life? How are you going to make a difference? What type of impact do you plan on making? I'm thinking, we're only 17. Why is he asking us this? Didn't know that he was really talking to my spirit and cultivating in me the person I am today. I had no clue. So I went and joined the Avondale Community Council organization, community right here in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I knew then that that was my calling, to be a part of something bigger than me. And then I became a roofer, right? So I was a roofer for 5 years. And once I fell off the roof, I knew God was saying, okay, young lady, what are you going to do? You're 22 years old. You need to figure this out. College, I kind of put that on the back burner, and I just didn't understand the significance in getting that education at that time. And so I started working in a nursing home in Avondale. And at that time, they had 5 nursing homes. And I would go from place to place to place to place, to building to building. And I just loved being in their company. Although I was there to do activities, it was bigger than that. I would take them out to different events. I would pick them up in my car on weekends. And I remember my supervisor saying, you know, we're not going to pay you for that. I said, okay, I'm already being paid. You don't have to pay me. And I remember just meeting the elders at that facility asking to come out. So I started an organization later on called Wisdom Behind the Walls, because what they were asking, what happened to my stuff? Where's my family? Where's my house? What happened? How did I end up here? And I didn't have answers to those questions. So I started digging around. And so my supervisor at the time really didn't understand my calling. And so from there, I just started driving around Avondale in the city of Cincinnati, and I was just looking to see where the seniors go through the day. Where are they at? And they had an adult day program over at now Good Sam Hospital that was run by Tri-Health. And I remember meeting a young lady, her name was Sandra as well. And we talked, and I said, why are these seniors getting up out of their bed to come here to drink coffee and just smoke cigarettes all day? And she said, I have no idea. So it was an adult day program. At that time, Cincinnati had about 54 adult day programs. I think they have 3 now. And I was just troubled by that. I said, we got to do more. We can have some fun. We can take them to different places. We can go to the ball game. And so I really started being birthed in 1986. Although we didn't become nonprofit till 93. So Sandra and I, we just took the bull by the horn. She was an excellent grant writer. We got our first grant from Shell gas station, but I had to go to Tampa, Florida to pick it up. I had never flown before. And I'm sitting on the plane, can't breathe. And the people next to me, they were so funny. They was like, "This is your first flight?" I was like, "It's obvious." They was like, "Yes." I was paranoid as heck. But didn't know we were going to the same conference. Okay? Didn't know. And so from that conference, I said, "God, this is it." I just knew at that time that I needed to do more. And so at the time I was still working. I quit the nursing home and I became a community navigator for Hamilton County Developmental Disability Services. And I retired from there 30 years. So I'm doing SOAC, working my job, working my family, and really trying to figure it all out at 27, 28 years old. And I'm thankful that I figured it out. So I was able to position myself in the aging community as a professional advocate. And so that's where I'm at today.
That is amazing. Your story is amazing. Why? Because it points to God had a hand on you at a very early age, and your life path was being unfolded in front of you. So your passion for working with seniors and helping seniors is literally his passion.
Yes.
His passion. You are a conduit for the goodness of God for our aging population. And I have to say this as we move forward. They, particularly given this COVID and this inflation, they need people like yourself. Would you like to talk about that?
Well, I can tell you the 30 years of being the founder and executive director of Serving Older Adults to Changing Times. And we chose the acronym SOACT because you know the issues. SOACT, do something. We can all do something. And so I think COVID taught us two things: that we need to be perseverant, and that folks were really, really ill prepared for a pandemic, especially our seniors. When your doctor say, "Call me up on the phone," and you got a flip phone, that didn't work. When you said we're going to do telehealth, they didn't understand that. And so we were able to write a grant, and we received the grant from United Way through Black Lady, and we bought tablets. And so we started equipping the seniors with tablets and teaching them how to use the tablets so that they can see their doctor and that they get online so they can do their banking, because everything really shut down. And then we start contacting other agencies to see what PPEs was available for our aging population. So I'm very pleased that we were able to pass out over 60,000 packages. And we continue that mission to this day because COVID hasn't gone anywhere. People don't want to talk about it, but the numbers are still pretty high.
No.
And I think like 67% of the seniors, the deaths were folks 65 and over. And so when you think about those statistics, you have to be able to put some things in place. And so we, as an organization, our mission was to make sure that we touched every senior, that we open our doors, because we never closed. And I'm so grateful. We never closed. So we start providing fresh produce. We start talking about cooking with a crock. How do you cook with a crock pot? How do you make fresh soup? And so that helped us to sustain our relationship with the people that we serve, but it also gave us some leverage in the community to show our commitment. And I just thank God that we were able to stay safe ourselves, but we also positioned the seniors in a way that they were educated. And so we put in things like, don't knock, no mask. If folks knocked on your door and didn't have on a mask, you don't let them in.
Right.
And if they didn't have an extra mask for you, you don't let them in. Right. And so we contacted several organizations that are serving our elders, home health care agency, and we said, when you go to visit our seniors, you make sure you take a mask. So they were gowned up and ready to go, suited up, but then they would walk into the senior home. The seniors didn't have on masks. And so we would say to them, don't let them in. I know you need to see your physical therapist, your occupational therapist, your podiatrist. You need to see all of them. But you gotta be safe. You gotta make sure that you are safe. And so offering hand sanitizers, disinfectant wipes, I think we had passed out 1 million of those, and we still pass those out. I just had an elderly person donate a box of that to me the other day. So now that we're still dropping off fresh produce, we're still dropping off PPE. And so we are still pushing. We're pushing for fairness and inclusion. Our seniors need to be included. They need to be at the table. We just can't say, come out and vote for us and the money doesn't follow. You can't come out and say, be a part of this levy and the money doesn't follow. So we got to make sure that when we're at the table, we're advocating in a fairness that would allow our seniors to be stronger. Right now, what is hurting our seniors is the increase of rent.
Oh,
I can tell you, some of these folks are losing their place. I have a senior now that is living in a hotel. I got another senior that was living in a car until a family member took them in. So we got to be mindful of that. Then we got to teach them not to be so prideful. You got to tell your business if you want some help.
tell me about it.
So that's old school. The seniors don't talk about their business. They could be sitting there, feet all swollen up, leg. They not going to mention that. So we need to keep our eyes on them. And so there are certain things I just won't serve. I'm not going to serve you alcohol, and I'm not buying you no cigarettes, and I'm not going to serve you no sweets that you can't eat. I'm just not going to do that. I don't want to contribute to your health if you're already at risk. And so we need to think about that, because most African Americans are taking at least 1 to 5 different prescriptions. And so monitoring your health is everything. And so although I do not have a nursing background, I can advocate for good health. So we call it aging well, eating right. Because you can eat right and move and still be healthy. How do you maintain good health? You listen to your doctor. But there's just some things you got to do. You got to turn off that TV. Even if you sit there watching TV, I tell them, do your exercise. Come on.
Yes,
move.
yes,
Move.
yes, yes.
Move. And so I remember we bought some 1 pound weights. And they're like, what is this for? While you're sitting there watching TV, I want you to be moving your arms, moving your legs.
Yes, yes, yes.
So it's been ongoing, Michelle. So thank you for that question.
Well, I tell you, because I, of course, have been very much involved, as you have been, only on the money side for our senior population for some years, starting with my immediate family, but then going into church world, etc. And it has grown me up. I'll put it like that. I am officially a senior. I'm over 70, as you know. And I have seen so much, and much of it is under the term, I think it was during the Nixon administration years ago, where he talked about benign neglect, the term benign neglect, which is, we'll be nice, but don't you be around.
Yes.
You know, don't just kind of go away. And particularly when it comes to their children and families. And what has your experience been? Because I'm still dealing with a level of disappointment for many of the children and grandchildren of our seniors. Would you like to talk about that?
So back in the nursing home, when I worked as an activity director, I would go through their files and call family members and say, you know what, your mom hasn't seen you in 2-3 years. Is there any way you could stop? And just please just come and visit. And so I thought as time went on, things would get better. It's worse now.
I think so.
It's horrible. And so working in the nursing home really brought some things to my attention. Families are struggling. So you have to have conversations with your family while you're still able. And so those of us that are baby boomers, we need to start telling our younger family members what we expect as we age and how we want them to care for us. So we have to put them in training now. I would tell you, every niece and nephew I had, all I have to do is just say 2 words. When I get old, they say, we're going to take care of you. We're not going to put you in this. We're going to play music. And the last thing I say, send me a check, right? Because my income is not going to be able to sustain me in 20 years because of the cost of living.
Yes.
But my aunt conditioned me like that. She said, baby, you know what? I'm going to need you guys to take care of me as I get old. I'm like, I'm going to take care of you. And so we did that as a family. And most families, for the most part, did that. Something has happened in the last
Again.
15, 20 years where
Yes.
we have dropped our loved ones off and left that up to someone else. I'm meeting with a family now that the grandson just refusing to move out. I'm like, how do you just, you gotta go. So Papa is very afraid of him, but he sleeps with a 48, a 40, yeah, a 48, 45. And I'm like, you shouldn't have to sleep with a gun because of your grandson. And so he's enabled the grandson. But I said to him at our meeting about a month ago, I said, where's his parent? And I called his parents up. You need to come and get your child from your parents' house. They're afraid of him. They hung up on me.
I bet they did, because they scared too.
They don't want to be bothered with
They
it.
don't want to be bothered.
So I called the police, and he's not on any records or anything, so I can't do anything there. But what I can do is keep showing up.
Yes.
They never know when I'm coming. I'll ring that doorbell. Hey, how y'all doing? And the nephew's like, and the grandson's like, you back again? Mm-hmm. You gonna see me
Yeah.
at least a couple times a month.
Yes.
And so that helped them to feel safe. But I also asked them to get a lifeline, right? So you can push that button and the life squad and the police is going to come at a second.
Right.
5 minutes. And so they didn't think about that. But there's a son, he doesn't live here, and he said, in fact, he's planning on moving back to Cincinnati because he's afraid what may happen to them. You shouldn't have to live like that when you're seven. In fact, they're 82 and 85.
No.
This is their great grandson. Why won't you move out? So yeah, it's bad now. It is so bad now. I don't even talk to the kid because I know what they're going to do. Nothing.
Right.
And those that have family members, I treasure those. I'll give them a gift card. I'll give them a gas card. I'll give them a Kroger card because you're caring for your parent and you need some help.
Right.
So I've done that before, and we will continue to do that. That is our solution for aging. So we have another program. We have like 5 programs. The solution for aging is just that. What are the solutions? The solution is that family members are struggling financially. And so they can't always go and do that extra for mom. But with a gas card, it's an incentive, right? We can't pay their way. And then we try to make sure that mom is connected with a service. But if you have a home, you already know you have to get rid of everything 5 years prior to.
Right.
And so we need to do a better job in educating our family. And I attended a meeting this past weekend, and it was talked about heir. What is your heir? So we need to put things in trust.
Yes.
So maybe that's another thing you and I can talk about.
Yeah.
Helping families put their property and their assets in a trust so they won't lose their stuff.
Right.
Population I retired from DDS, they have mastered that. So the family members will not lose their stuff.
Right.
So I do a program called Don't Move My Stuff, right?
Don't move my stuff.
Don't move my stuff. Right. And it really just kind of talk a little bit about, if you move me out of my home and you take me to a nursing home, bring me some pictures, bring me something that I can hold on to. One quick story. I have a young lady, I'm her legal guardian. And 10 years ago, she was moved from her apartment and placed in a nursing home. So when I go see her, the first thing she said to me, you taking me home? You taking me home? And so I went over to the apartment complex where she lived, and I took some pictures to let her see that someone else now lived in that apartment. She had a tissy fit. Said, well, you need to go call the police and put him out. I said, I can't do that. But I want her to understand that I'm listening to her.
Right.
And so now I want to take her to see it. I want her to see, because reality is something, but when you have dementia, you have to say it over and over and over and over and over and over again. So I don't want to put her through any agony. And so what I tell her now, I'll take you home, but now you got to take a bath because now she's refusing to bathe. And that's how I get her to bathe.
Yeah.
Telling her I'm going to take her home. But that is so frightening. You know, someone have moved you out of your home and didn't bring anything. They did bring one thing, her Bible.
Oh,
and she told me she wasn't a Christian. I said, well, why would they just grab the Bible?
Right.
But what she did tell me, it was her mom's Bible.
Oh, okay.
She's not a Christian, but her mom was a believer.
Okay.
And guess what? She still has that Bible.
Yes. Yes.
And so all I can say, Michelle, is that We need to sound the horn. We need to be jumping up and down, telling our community, shame on you. Because one day we're all going to get old.
That
And
Sandra,
mm,
if I can interrupt and just say that what you're telling me is keeping me, I mean, I'm ready to just start crying because the situation is so painful to watch and to know the outcome, which is back to that benign neglect, which is just disappear. And I'm like, excuse me, please. Our society cannot survive with that type of mindset. There is a time to be born in Book of Ecclesiastes, and there's a time to die. But there is a lot going on in the middle that raises all of us up to a standard of integrity. And I mean, this is where we are as a society, which is the absolute absence of integrity. And if you don't have integrity with your own lives, there is no way you're going to have integrity with your people's lives as they age. So they can leave, and my mother's in a memory care. And I am the Sunday entertainment for everybody at the memory care because I come in with food and loud and carrying on. They say, here she comes. And I love all of them. But their families are not there. They're not there. I hug them. I kiss them. I talk to them. I play with my mother. I play with her peer. Nobody comes to see these people.
yeah.
Nobody. So they create a community of themselves. They all know each other, and they interact with each other, but they want their families. So when I say to people on my radio show that why don't you visit your people? Because that's your tribe. And I'm passionate about it because it should not be like this. Our culture is singing a song about how we don't love ourselves. Your thoughts?
I think for the most part, we have done a bad job here in our country, the United States of America, when we decided not to honor our seniors, of course.
Oh.
But I think when President Lyndon Johnson enacted the Older American Act, he talked the Older American Month back in, 68.
Mm-hmm.
He really was talking about those older workers that have been working and that deserved to have something. So May is Older American Month, and I think we need to take that month, the whole 31 days, and celebrate aging. And we can do that as a society. We can turn things around because now we're working with a whole new different generation. We're working with young people that are excited about school. They're wanting to be nurses and doctors and engineers. And those are the ones we need to tap into. It may not be your birth family, but it's going to be your earthly family that helps sustain you these days.
Yes.
And so we need to sow into those young people that are going to school to be a nurse. I love talking to young people. I love it. I love the fact that they're interested in physical therapy. But when I ask them, what is your discipline? It's not geriatric. It's just not. They're not going into gerontology. They're not. I remember when I got my degree in gerontology, folks was like, what is that? I said, working with the aging population. And folks are still somewhat puzzled that I would go and get a degree in that. But I learned over the years to celebrate that, but also to encourage other folks to be physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech pathologists, because once you have had a stroke, you can't speak, then you need to be able to communicate. So learning sign language is so important, some of the basics, like we would teach our kids. So as we age, we need to be better prepared. So I do this thing called transition to old age. And I ask folks, what are you going to do when you get to be 80?
Ha.
You know, we always ask kids where they're going to be. But I ask folks, what are you going to do?
Right.
You can barely take care of yourself now. So what is your plan? And so many of them don't have a plan.
They don't have a plan.
And they don't have the money because they just didn't position themselves to save any money. And then they just was foolish with money. I mean, We in more debt now than we've ever been. And so we, as a community, we got to be the ones that talk about transition to old age. We got to be thinking about why I'm sitting at that dinner table. Do I want to eat all this food knowing my blood pressure and cholesterol is high? We got to talk about that. We got to help our young people to see that growing old is a beautiful thing. And I love sharing that with my nieces and nephews. I'm going to tell you, I keep them all. They all know me. They all love me. They all come to me and I babysit because I'm training them. And some of them, I'm 60 years old and I got one, she's one. And she loves my earrings and so I'm always dangling my earrings. She'll never forget that. She'll never forget me pulling on my earring. And so you have to start planting those seeds and you have to start sowing into their spirit what it's like to love as you get old. And I got a couple of them that just say, you know what, you're already old, especially my 8-year-old.
I know that.
Like, what does that mean? He'll say, well, you're 61. I'm like, yeah, but you're going to be 61 one day. He said, oh, I don't want to be 61. So we have to teach our kids not to be afraid to go.
Yes.
We have to teach them not to be afraid to die. You know, we have to continue the whole conversation. See, I don't do good with meetings anymore.
No.
We have to have action steps. And that's why we say so act. When people come to me about an issue, I say, okay, so act. What are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
I don't want to hear your problem. Mm-hmm. I want to hear your solution. And a lot of times we need to flip it back on people because, Michelle, we have done a very poor job in helping folks get out of this pit. And so there's no excuse for not going to care for your mommy and daddy. Because many of us that no longer have our parents, I miss my mom dearly. My mom loved fresh flowers, so I made sure I bought me some yesterday in her honor. Yes. My dad was a hard worker. Got up this morning, started working. So we got to show our kids that it's okay to grow old so they won't toss us away.
Right.
But the flip side to it, I've met some seniors that did wrong by their kids.
Oh.
They did wrong by their kids and they chose a life outside of their kids and their kids now have nothing to do with them. So I used to think it was all the kids, but some of these seniors have done some real horrible things to their kids. I have a very good friend and he talked about how his mom allowed her husband to molest him as a boy and his mom did nothing to protect him.
Right.
And so you don't think he's bitter?
Oh, yeah.
But he's the one taking care of her now.
You know, that is so poignant.
And I said to him, I said,
yeah, that is,
I told him to stay strong.
That's all you can say. The New York Times did a story that had so much response that they put it on social media about when children won't go back home. And they talked about this very thing, Sandra, where parents had not done their children right. And there's a lot of parents out here who forget that you're going to get old one day. You going to get old. If you living, you living. And who is going to take care of you? Who is going to be willing to listen to you? And I mean, the stories that were shared, New York Times, were so horrifying and disturbing. And it made me say to myself, well, maybe they're right. Maybe they should run to California and say, don't show up. Don't show up. Don't show up. But again, and I say that opens up the whole area of mental illness and mental health. And talk to me about that, because I run into that a lot, where parents are now older and they're bitter, and or they have had issues and they didn't get them worked out. Are there options for them to get therapy and help so that they can live out the rest of their lives in a much better way? Situationally, one of my mother's associates, where she is mean as a critter, as we say in Kentucky. That thing's going to bite you. And she is just oozing with anger and projects onto everyone. And I finally sat her down and I told her, I said, I love you. And she looked at me like, what? And I said, I do. I love you. I said, I love the fact that you're still here. But I don't want to get off into my story. You're being interviewed because I want to hear your perspective about seniors and how they're dealing with transition and mental illness.
Well, so you think about that. And so we started another initiative called Nursing Home Ambassadors. Right?
Yes.
So when you go inside a nursing home, like you said, they gravitate towards you because other folks are not there. So what if we create some ambassadors in our community that have maybe an hour or two a month to go inside to befriend some of the folks? So SOAC has adopted several nursing homes. We have about 7 up in Butler County. We got about 3 or 4 here. But we're inside most of the senior facilities. So we're thinking in terms of what else can we do? So one of my very good friends, and I attend church with her name is Cynthia Glenn Jackson.
Yes.
She just called me this morning and said, Sandra, she has her master's and working on maybe her PhD in mental health counseling. And she said, Sandra, is there any need for me to come and do a group session with your seniors?
Woo!
Like, did God send you today? So God always sends me people. And I said to her, yes. And I'm going to tell you why. Because think about it. If you're sitting in your building or your apartment building and you think the world is against you and you have no one you can go talk to, you're going to start talking to yourself.
Yes.
And so it's only a matter of time you're going to believe what you're saying if you're feeling defeated. And so I think mental health has always been there to some capacity for all of us. But it's the coping skills that you need to deal with the ills that's going to attack you, because Satan is coming. If you let him in, he's coming. But we serve a God that will protect you from some of those things if you're ready to accept what he's sending. So coping skills to me doesn't stop when you get old. So I used to give my son hypothetical situations. What if, what if? Same thing I do now with the elders. What if? What if your check don't come on the 3rd? What are you going to do? What if? What if the gas and electric is turned off in this building? Do you have a flashlight, a candle? Are you ready if there's an emergency? We knew you weren't ready for the pandemic, but what if there's a disaster? Are you ready? Do you have a safety kit near you? Do you know first aid if your grandson sit there and choke in front of you? We already know you can't swim. Do you want to take swim lessons? So we got to more or less say to them, what do you need to cope with your old age? So I'm so grateful that we've been able to help some seniors come over to Drake Hospital to get in the water and learn how to swim. You know, everybody should know how to swim. Besides, it's good exercise.
You're right.
But CPR to me is vital. I mean, if you're sitting there and you don't know what to do, it's like watching your kid drown. You're not going to jump in that water because fear will paralyze you.
Yes.
You're not going to do it. So mental health in our community, we need to break that stigma. We need to say to our elders, it's okay. There's a whole curriculum on aging with mental illness, because a lot of times we ignore it because we say, oh, mom is okay. She's just mean. Yeah, she's mean, but there's some other stuff that's going on that's causing her to be mean. So I'm hoping that SOAC can continue to advocate for all of these things in a way that we empower other people and organizations to step up. So I reached out last year. I started something and I kind of dropped the ball, and going into businesses and organizations, especially corporations that have employees caring for their aging loved one. There's no reason why I should not use my family lead act to go care for my mom. And I thank God for that act. But they had to make organizations, it had to become a federal law in order for that to happen. And so what if you were just being nice to your employees? We let them off for their kids. You know, I was very grateful that my job allowed me to take my dad to the doctor, because I saw my dad slipping. I was like, oh, I better start going to the doctor with you. It drove him nuts. But guess what? I started going with him and I started asking questions. So one of the things we have done too, we're going to start giving seniors tape recorders. Take this with you because you're not going to remember why he gave you that meds. It's like I tell them, don't call it a water pill. It's a pill on something. It's not a water pill. What is it? So we need to know the pronunciation of this medicine, and we need to learn the side effects of this stuff.
Yes.
I mean, my doctor just took me off something that I was helping for my knee, but it was jacking up my blood pressure. I was like, oh, today I feel like 100% better because I didn't take it last night. And I only took a half this morning. But our elders, guess what? They're going to pop those pills because guess what? The doctor said,
Doctor told
take
them.
your medicine. So mental illness is real. Using drugs in our community, the opioid crisis is not going anywhere.
Nope.
They're chopping up some of those hot pills and smoking it in marijuana and dying. They are ODing off drugs.
Right.
And so we don't want to talk about that. AIDS is up in African American community with our elders. We don't want to talk about that either. So there are some things that we can do to help our seniors make that transition to old age, but it's called coping skills and knowing where you're at. You know where you're at, you know where you're going. And
Can
so,
I ask a question before we go to, while we're talking about mental health, we might as well just dive on into the unspeakable, and that is sexuality among older Americans and seniors, because just because they're old doesn't mean they're dead.
And they're not using protective sex.
They don't have to use, sometimes, I don't know, with the AIDS issue, but do you want to speak to that with our seniors and the issue of sexuality?
I think you should never lose your sex appeal, right?
Yeah.
You can sometimes make sure that you look good for you, but then you got to get outside and mingle and meet people. Do it on purpose. I mean, I met my husband online. Most folks say, I'm not getting online, but I would have never met Rob any other way because we're like two different people. I would have never met him any other way. And we've been married now 6 years. I would have never met this man. And he's a nurse for hospice. And
oh my gosh.
As you get old, you feel lonely. And but I can tell you, not the men, 9 out of 10, the man is going to be married. That woman, she won't. That man, he's going to go find him another companion because that lady's been waiting on the wife to die to come in. I'm telling you.
That's right.
It's crazy, but it happens. They marry their best friend husband.
They marry their best friend's husband.
I've seen it happen.
Yes.
You get lonely, and when you're lonely, who don't want, especially if you've had 15 kids, you know what that's like to have that affection. So I think our sexuality, we need to understand. And and I really feel for those seniors that are struggling with their sexuality. I have a couple of seniors that said that they've been gay all their life, but they didn't know how to tell anybody.
Oh, wow.
And so they've struggled with that. And so we need to make sure that we are very sensitive to people's needs and be willing to listen and welcome the conversation and don't be judgmental. I had a young lady, when I say young, she's 85, and I was bragging on my husband to her last Saturday. I went to visit the nursing home. She said, "You're looking awfully happy today. What's going on?" I said, "I got a lunch date with my husband." She said, "Fine." I said, so I showed her Rob picture. She said, "Oh, he's cute, but how is he in bed?" I said, I was like, I wasn't expecting her to say that. She's 85, and I laughed so hard. I said, "Hey, you got jokes this morning?" She said, "No, I'm dead serious." I said, "Okay, now you think about that.
Okay.
What would make her ask me that? Because of some things that she's experienced in her lifetime."
Right.
She missed her husband.
Right.
And she talked about being sexually active. And she talked about missing that companionship. She said, "It doesn't have to be an intercourse. I just want to be held." She just wanted to have somebody to hold her. That's all she wanted.
Right.
And so when you're in a nursing home, I'm so glad they passed that law back in the 80s that you can have a relationship. Before, they used to tie him up and put him away. I was like, but she's human. He's human.
Right.
And so we cannot shy away from sexuality because we get old, or having a sexual relationship because they get old. And we need to talk about that and let them know it's okay. So we don't do date night with SOAC, but we do some intentional acts where we make sure we got men and women in the same room. And we might just drum up the conversation about, "Hey, you looking for a date?" And so I tell you, when we went to Savannah, we did have a couple to get together, and they still together today. And they both are old, and they don't want to lose their income. So guess why? They can't get married.
No.
And so, they don't want to lose their housing.
No.
But they've hit it off pretty good. And they are, 81? And he's 70?
Well, I'm telling you, if I might say that, because every time I go to visit my mother, which is every Sunday like clockwork after church, she asks me the same question. And that is, are you dating? Do you have a man? I'm like, why are you at 89 asking me this kind of question? Why? And she said, because you're a vibrant woman. This is a woman with Alzheimer. And
Your mother was vibrant. You know what I mean?
She was like,
so you inherit that. Yeah.
I mean, she is like, whoa, and I was like, can we change the subject? And she's like, no, I want an answer. And I just said to myself, what is happening here? But it's real, and this is why I wanted you on as my guest, because you are boots on the ground, which is you are not into an academic conversation about aging and about seniors. And I want my viewers and listeners all over this country to be aware, and all over the world, because the show airs everywhere, to be aware that the person you're looking at, until they're dead, they're alive. And a lot of the depression and the down-spiritedness comes from people that are around them. Their families aren't pouring into them. They don't have the same contact. So many of their friends have crossed over. What would you feel like if all of your network of friends was gone? And how do you regroup from that type of thing? This is where we are as a nation and as a world. The whole world is older. I mean, we got a president that's not a spring chicken.
No, he's not.
No,
he's President Biden. And I think, and you said that, and I hear that from the seniors all the time. All my friends are dead. All my friends are dead. And so all we can do is just talk about and allow them to reminisce on the friends that they have now. New friends.
New friends.
So, new friends. And it's hard to trust when you've been burnt a couple times as you get older. But we can do this. I'm so excited about the future. I planned my life out when I was 17 up until this day, and looking forward to the future. But one of the things I think that have sustained me is the hope.
Yes.
And we got to restore the hope in our older people.
Yes.
We got to let them know, because a lot of them just didn't plan to grow old. They knew they was going to get old, but before they knew it, they were 75. Before they knew it, now I'm 90.
I'm there, okay? And I keep saying to myself, what is this? Looks different.
But we can't lose that. So my son, who's 43, he's like, Mom, I remember when I had my back surgery, he said, I just didn't think you was going to need me this soon. I was like, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I thank God that he sent a man into my life that can go out there and shovel that snow. I'm not doing, I don't have to do anything.
Oh, girl, I'm not snubbing. I'm not raking no leaves. I plant my garden, I plant my plants, but that's it. Somebody better
when you're 75 years old, and you looking at your door and you see a pile of snow and you know you got to walk out there, you think about the fear factor of falling.
And so, falling. Oh.
1 out of 4 seniors will fall in their lifetime. And so it's horrible. But fear, as I said earlier, will paralyze you. So we got to have fun. So SOAC is about having fun.
I want you Sandra, before you get deep, I need you to give a phone number. I need you to give a phone number so people, including the area code, where people can reach out to you if they want to volunteer for one of your remarkable programs. You can count me in for visiting nursing homes. I told you, that's not a problem. I love them. I love what they bring, and their personalities are amazing. Getting older. If they were ratty when they were young, they are humdingers when they're old.
That's it.
They are. Yes. So but give your number, please, would you?
So area code 513-861-2790.
Say it again.
513-861-2790. And the email is agingwell1993@gmail.com.
I want to commend you before we get further for your program where you were giving away laptops.
Wow.
Tablets to seniors to learn how to use the technology. Because one of my challenges with so many of the seniors I deal with, I communicate by email. Not that I don't want to talk to them. I'm just incredibly busy and I don't have the talk time to give the information. And so many of them, I'm talking about with Medicare, simply enrolling in Medicare, You want to have an email so we can do confirmations and stuff. And nothing, nothing, period. I don't do that. What do you mean? How do you pay your gas and electric? Well, I mail them a check. What? Are you not aware of what's happening with the post office? Okay, in these boxes? There's a lot going on, so I want to thank you personally for what you've done. And I also want to thank you in this because of your consistent support of my passion, which are veterans, and for your support of our annual African American Senior Veterans Day, which is coming up again. And the fact that I don't even have to struggle with you. I know you're going to be there. And I want to say that on camera because viewers and listeners, you need to know this woman is dear to my heart and she's special to you all, and you need to know this because there aren't a lot of people that care today. There aren't a lot of people that are uplifting today and can give you hope. And she is one of them. I am proud to call her my friend. Hear me well. So I had to say that, Sandra, because
I thank you for that. Michelle, I've always admired you. I remember our first event that we did, and to this day, and I just thank God for the board that SOAC has because it has allowed me to sow seeds into organizations and businesses, and we don't ask for much back. Folks say, I need you to tell me what you want me to do. I say, just do what you do and just include us in it. I'm not trying to create a program for nobody else because we got enough going on. And so we'll sow those seeds, and it's only because we know that we're going to continue to water them. And so year after year, you water that plant that you've helped plant. And so that's the philosophy of SOAC because no one sowed a seed into us.
Yes.
Well, let me back up. I say that really lightly. Because there were some folks that sowed into me hope and ambition and perseverance. Like Gilbert Young, who we had here. I met Gilbert, I was a young 24-year-old person. I said, I want to start my own business working with the elderly. He said, well, do it. So for him to come to our 30th event, for me to be able to honor him while he can still smell the roses. He's now 82 years of age.
Awesome. Gilbert
and he was
Young.
just able to encourage me. And people like Miss Willie Haywood, I loved her so much. She was my mentor. I met her, I was a young mother, 19 years old, didn't have a clue. She said, well, babe, I'm gonna tell you two things. Don't move in with nobody and don't have no more kids. She said, you do those things, you might be all right. Well, I got one son and I retired from my job for 30 years and I'm doing this business now for 30 years. So all she was saying to me was stay focused, stay on your journey. God has a calling for you, you just gotta figure out what it is. And it wasn't until I joined Corinthian Baptist Church and Pastor K.Z. Smith talked about your purpose in life.
Awesome man. Awesome man. But
from
listen,
there, God has been it's just been awesome.
Then we have to wind up. We're done.
Okay. We're done.
I told you an hour goes fast. So I just want to thank all of you listeners and viewers. You have listened to Sandra Jones Mitchell, who is CEO and Executive Director of SOAC with headquarters in Cincinnati, Ohio, talk about aging, seniors, and herself, her organization. And I encourage you, listeners and viewers, to live your best life. Sow and seed into other people love, joy, and hope. And I will see you all the next time. God bless you all. Take care of yourself. I'm signing off as Michelle Graves, the Money Lady. You take care now. Bye-bye.
Thank you, darling. Awesome.